When are we going to learn that attacking someone's lifestyle isn't the way in? What purpose is that actually serving? And who are we actually helping? What's up, my EFF? Let me tell you how it is. You're listening to Jots, a podcast that explores the nature of love, compassion, joy, and the real-life connection between human beings. I'm Ender Bowen, Nashville, Tennessee rock pop artist, author, husband, father, complete dork, and aspiring compassionist. Sit back, relax, and be prepared to laugh, cry, maybe even shake your fist at the moon for some reason. You're going to hell. I'll pray for you. If you're a Christian, you know this sentence, or something like it, very well. You've heard it, you've said it, you've written it on social media comments, worn it on a t-shirt, entered it into the suggestion box at Cards Against Humanity. Okay, well, maybe not that last one, but you know it pretty well nonetheless. You know who else has heard this one before? Non-Christians. Yeah, obvi. Who else would you be saying it to? But are you aware of how it sounds to non-Christians? How it makes them feel? A few years back, I was hanging out with a couple of my favorite people, who are also each one of each other's favorite people. That's kind of hard to say. One is a Christian and pretty much has been her whole life. The other is definitely not, and definitely hasn't been for his entire life. These two individuals hadn't seen each other for a while before then, so naturally, they discussed where they'd been, what they'd been doing, the ubiquitous catch-up-on-life conversation. Somehow, when I wasn't looking, I must have gotten up to get a pint. Those crazy kids just can't be left alone together. They started talking about religion. I don't know how that happened. Neither one of them really likes to talk about it, but it happened. As far as I know, it was a good, lively conversation until right about the time I reappeared with drinks. I heard her say, "Well, if that's really how you feel, you're going to hell. But I'll pray for you." Based upon the look on his face, I was almost convinced I was going to be struggling through 3 pints for the next hour. What? I mean, I can drink kind of fast if I need to. Everything worked out, though. He took a deep breath and moved the conversation on. Drinks were consumed, laughter was had. The rest of the evening was really nice. But later on, when I gave my non-Christian friend a ride home, he told me how much that comment had hurt. He felt like he was being convicted of something awful, straight up judged, by someone he truly loves, admires, and respects. Ultimately, he felt like he was being condemned. And I totally understood that because it's exactly how I felt when I wasn't a believer, and Christians would say essentially the same things to me. I've spoken in the past about how, during the first 2 decades of my life, I had a very uncomfortable relationship with the church, the concept of God, and organized religion specifically. Either at church itself or in the company of other Christians who were dead set on converting me, I always felt judged, condemned, and shamed. I used to think to myself, why would anyone want to be on that team if this is how it makes you feel? If this is the way people behaved? To me, regardless of how good your message or intentions might be, if you aren't acting in accordance with that, I just don't trust you. Nor do I want to be a part of whatever you're cooking up. This is part and parcel of why it took so long for me to convert. I just wasn't going to respond to that. It took God actually stepping in himself and finding ways to communicate with me that he knew I would understand and accept. He knew I was always interested in the message and in him, but the people that were supposed to get me there didn't know me like he knew me. And that's an important distinction. In fact, when it comes to trying to sell Jesus, oftentimes I don't think Christians know how they come across. In a sense, that's understandable. After all, they're living on the inside of it. For all intents and purposes, they know what's going on. Take my Christian friend from earlier. Because she has pretty much been on the inside her entire life, the concept of hell is very real to her. The idea that not believing in Jesus condemns you to eternal damnation is an idea she interacts with all the time. She absolutely adores my non-Christian friend, so it's completely natural that she'd want to convert him to Christianity. She loves him so much that she's terrified if he doesn't get on board, they may never see each other again once they've passed on, and he may be tortured and punished for all eternity. "You're going to hell. I'll pray for you," is a statement that says, I love you. I don't want you to experience hell. I want you to experience everlasting joy and peace and love in heaven with our Father. If I can't convince you of that, I'm going to pray for you in the hopes that God will see mercy or otherwise soften your heart so that maybe one day you will accept that. Look, I know that's not what all Christians mean, and that's another conversation for another time, but I know that's what she meant because I'm on the inside too, and because I know her very well. But because I have the benefit of having not been on the inside for half my life, I know exactly what this sounds like to non Christians. It doesn't sound anything like a love fest. It sounds like condemnation and judgment. And who wants to join a group that pretty much sounds as if they hate you? Why would you want to do anything they're asking, recommending, or, let's be honest, bullying you to do? None of what I've talked about thus far specifically points at another human being's perceived sin. Up to this point, I've really only used one example of how we as Christians might be turning would-be believers, as well as never-gonna-be's, away. But that doesn't mean sin never comes up. Christians often espouse how turning to Jesus will relieve you of your homosexuality, porn addiction, heavy metal affliction, or love of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and on and on. Well, if you were gay, if you watched porn, if you liked heavy metal or watched Cartoon Network, how do you think this kind of thing would make you feel? Persecuted? Shamed? Very few people respond to that. We tend to forget, even though it's more than implied, that as Christians we still have sin too. How would you like it if that was always picked and prodded at, as if there was something wrong with you? How would you feel if those around you were constantly implying that, sure, you're a Christian, but you're just not a good enough one? I know, I get it. Even when Christians say things about homosexuals and porn addicts, most of the time the intent is to save. Most of the time we're trying to bring those people closer to Jesus so that they can be redeemed and they can be a part of God's kingdom. Most of us genuinely mean well. But we're focusing on the wrong things. And because we're focusing on the wrong things, we're saying the wrong things. When we talk about someone being gay or about someone watching porn or loving money too much or watching Lucifer, a show I absolutely love, by the way, we aren't being heard. And in fact, we're being pushed away because the person on the other side feels as if we are attacking their livelihood and lifestyle. In a sense, they're not wrong because that kind of is what we're doing, isn't it? We don't really seem to be talking to the person, instead focusing on what we perceive as a sin. Oh, but Ender, this is Satan hardening their hearts and turning them away from the Lord. Maybe, but so? So we just keep doing and saying the same things and expect them to suddenly, magically work? We keep banging against that steel wall, getting nowhere, and don't think to ourselves, maybe we should try going around, huh? When are we going to learn that attacking someone's lifestyle isn't the way in? When are we going to see how subjective and discompassionate this is? When are we going to see that by focusing on the perceived sin and not the person right in front of us, we are rarely, if ever, going to bring them around to the joy of Jesus? Why would we? We think we are bringing them this wonderful gift, and hey, I believe that's what it is too, but they don't see it that way. It's like we're trying to sell them something they don't want and certainly don't need. It doesn't matter how good we think the product is. You are going to love this refrigerator. It has built-in water and ice, deep storage space along the doors. You can reconfigure the inside shelves any way you want. And there's even a window so you can see what you have without opening it. Dude, I live in my car. What purpose is that actually serving? Who are we actually helping? How is this an example of God's kingdom? Remember, for half of my life, I distanced myself away from church, churchgoers, God, and religion in general. But at some point, that changed. At some point, I became a believer. And that happened because God knew me. God knew how to speak to me. God knew who I was, and because of that, knew how to formulate the arguments. He knew what to put in front of me. He knew how to make it digestible. This is how we need to talk to people. We need to know them. That's how God did it. That's how we should do it, with compassion. Be the thing you are inviting these people into. Learn what they want and what they need. Understand what it is that's missing. Know their fears and their shortcomings. Be there to hold them when they're down and lift them up when they stumble. In essence, just be the good friend Jesus is. Do it the way he does it, and you may never need to say another word. Jesus was pretty clear. He wants us to love each other as we love ourselves. This is what compassion is all about. If we know each other and, as a result, love each other, then we know how to talk to each other. We know how to be around one another. We know then how to present the value in Jesus' salvation. Heck, maybe if we do things right, we won't even have to present it. It'll sell itself. These things we call sins are not the issue. They never have been. Again, another conversation for another time. They're not the issue because even as Christians ourselves, we still have them. Like a tattoo we got in our youth that's still on our shoulder now. Marks that we bring with us and that stay with us. Scars that never go away no matter how strongly we believe. Scars indeed. If only we had someone by our side who knew where that scar came from. How deep the cut, how painful the wound. If only we had someone there who saw what was inside. How ugly the damage, how messy the situation. If only we had someone who helped us sew that wound shut, who held the needle and thread with us, who pierced our skin with us. How dulled the pain, how reassuring the experience. Then the scar wouldn't seem so much to be the important part, would it? One might even ask, what scar? I think it's time we stopped expecting people to meet us where we are, and instead do the work of meeting them where they are, on their turf. Give them the home field advantage. That's a large part of what compassion is and what it means to come to passion. If you really are being the thing you are inviting them into, with time, you may find it's just as much your home field too. All right, now it's your turn. Have you ever had an experience where you felt condemned, judged, or shamed, even if it wasn't related to Christianity, Christians, or religion at all? What happened? What was said? Have you ever, even inadvertently, made someone feel this way? How? What, if anything, did you do to resolve this? How might you use the suggestions in this podcast to be the thing you're inviting them to? I invite you to share your thoughts with me via email, ender@enderbowen.com, or you can go to enderbowen.com/Discord to learn how you can share your thoughts with the growing Ender Bowen community. I would love for you to share your thoughts about this episode with my growing community of aspiring compassionists. Find out how to join us on Discord by going to enderbowen.com/Discord. Look how easy I made that. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the God Jots podcast on your favorite podcast streaming service. You can also check out more God Jots, as well as subscribe to the mail list for ebooks, updates, and exclusive content at godjots.com. Until next time, be honest with yourself, be truthful with others, give people the opportunity to surprise you, and remember that it's impossible to have absolutely nothing in common with another human being. Be a little light in the world. I'm sure I'll see you soon.